This week, if you've been coming to Mass, almost every day we hear Jesus repeating again and again and again the same commandment to love one another. Just today, I think it's like almost 3 times he said, I command you, love one another. It's almost saying, if you did not catch it the first time, I'm repeating it the second time, love one another. If you still don't get it, love one another, okay? So like, you cannot leave the church and say like, I don't know what I have to do. You have to love one another. So that's important. First is to know what is asked of us. Jesus said, you are my friends if you do what I command you. So there is this reality of friendship with Christ, true and verifiable if we follow the command. You could be assured that you are in friendship with Jesus if you follow that. But there's the second piece that we need to know. To know what you're supposed to do is one thing, but sometimes how to do it is another thing. Sometimes you know what you need to cook, but sometimes you don't know how to cook it. That can be a problem. So Jesus gives us something so that no one can say, I don't know how to do that. I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know how to do it. So Jesus makes it even more precise so that there is no mistaking what he means when he says, I command you, love one another. This is what this command is about. He said, no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. So the love Jesus is speaking of is qualified, crystal clear. It's more than just having an emotional, romantic affair with another person. That can be part of it, but certainly it's not just that. The emotional side of loving does not define love, at least in the terms Jesus is laying it for us. He said, no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. So love in the mind of Jesus is about giving oneself to others. That means giving oneself to the point of being disadvantaged. I love to the point that I am disadvantaged because I've laid my life for the one I love. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. If we don't know what it means to be disadvantaged, you look at Jesus on the cross and you begin to see the great disadvantage he took on himself so that you and I can have life. And Jesus is saying the same, that you are also to do the same. This is a command. This is not a request. There's a difference between a request and a command. A command is something you do. And the command is to lay down your life, to put yourself out of love in a disadvantaged position. That is why sometimes when people come to me and say, you know, I'm having a very difficult time because I'm taking care of my elderly parents because of the things that I have to do when I see them suffering, it's so hard. I always say, you know, the only reason why you are suffering is because you love. That is the only reason why you suffer, because of your love for your elderly parents. If you don't love them, you would not suffer. So, suffering can sometimes teach us about why we suffer. When we suffer like that, we suffer for a good reason. We suffer for love. Sometimes people will say, my life now is very sad and lonely because my spouse is very ill and I could not even do much. I am just feeling miserable from what my spouse is going through. That is a suffering, but that is a good suffering. You are suffering because you love that person. If you have no love for that person, you have no reason to suffer. And so love that Jesus invites us to do is a love capable of suffering, being disadvantaged, because we are choosing to love, not for the sake of self-promotion, but for the good of another person, promoting another person, not our own interest. That's why when the people asked St. Francis, "What shall we call your friars?" he said, "They will be called friar minor." Minor in the sense of they are to be less, so others can be more. They are to be at a disadvantage point so that others can have an advantageous position. And so when people always say, "Father, get ahead of line," I say, no. That's against friar minor. You go ahead of line. You get the food first. Father should not get the food first. You get the food first. But that's what we do to your children. You let them eat first. You take care of them. You suffer because you love them. And if you understand what that means, then you know what Jesus is saying in the gospel.